place to start is to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Everything we've been able to accomplish this year, all the things that we have in process are possible because of the financial support and the support in terms of volunteer effort that come from the Friends of the East Broad Top organization. Mr. Posner pointed out the extent to which the foundation relies on us, and we are remarkable among railroad preservation organizations in terms of the amount of effort and the amount of money that we're able to bring to bear on these types of projects. So thank you to everybody who's participated either in a financial way or in a volunteer way in terms of making these things happen. If you hit the next slide, you can see that we had a superb result this past year with our fundraising campaign. We set out to raise $100,000, which seemed like a big piece of money at the time. We beat that by about 2.5-fold. The last number that I've gotten from Ray is $247,000, and there were still 9 days to go in the campaign, so I'm sure a few more dollars have trickled in. We'll get a final wrap up, but it's going to be very close to $248,000. Thank you. That's an amazing result. And if you go on, it raises some interesting possibilities in terms of what we were able to do with that additional money. The numbers that are shown here are in addition to funds that were already pledged. So for example, for the archive, we had already pledged $35,000 when we began the campaign a year ago. With the additional money coming in, we were able to add additional funds to that, in this case $8,125. Some of these numbers address the matching types of situations that Mr. Posner mentioned. For example, they received the grant for the, or that they intended to use for the water system on the fire suppression program here in Rock Hill. It required some considerable bolstering expansion of the water supply that was available from the Twin Boroughs, and that money required a match. We were able to pledge the matching money so that that work was able to proceed. We were able to step in when the opportunity arose to begin actually rehabilitating track going south of Saltillo, and by Gene Tucker and his crew $20,000 worth of ties to begin the work that you've, I'm sure, already had a chance to inspect this weekend. We had been planning for a long time to do work in Robertsdale on the roof of the museum. The fact that we were able to accelerate that by several years with the donations, very helpful in preserving the special materials, the displays, and the archival material that are now stored in the museum building. So thank you for the opportunity to be able to, in some cases, really bring in the timeline, bring it in closer to the present and other places, to be able to enable the foundation to do work on projects that they had partially funded but not completely funded because of the matching requirement, and all of that is due to the contributions that you all have made. Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and look at a couple of specific examples. You recall that last year there were 4 things we were going to try to fund. The archive, the fire suppression work here in Rock Hill, the march to Saltillo, and work in Robertsdale. We talked a little bit about the archive already, so we'll start with that. And it basically repeats some of the numbers you've already heard, that we had identified over 1,000 maps, drawings, hundreds and hundreds of photos, dozens of bound volumes, file cabinets full of paper that can eventually become part of the archive. And the proof is in the pudding. We can go on today and examine that, and you'll see what we've accomplished. There's more to come. This gives you some idea of what's still to be processed within the archives over in the station. So this year we wanted to continue the level of work that has been going on in the past, basically having Julie work nearly full-time and Sammy work to continue his work as a technician for the rest of the year as well. This relieves the foundation from worrying about funding that work. They can basically focus on capital campaigns with their fundraising. We'll handle the labor for the archive as part of something that we raise money for and contribute ourselves. Next project, the March to Saltillo. As Brad pointed out, there's work already underway. The goal is to continue across the bridge at the Upper Augury Crossing and to get to Pogue, and that's going to require a number of specialized types of work. Not only will we need a great many more ties, we're going to need professional services related to bridges and a variety of other types of things. The railroad has begun to identify contractors that can do that work, to identify sources of money to pay for that type of work. Some of the state funding, for example, was mentioned a little while ago. But again, that work requires, in most cases, matching money. So our goal is to have a pot in hand of funds that we've raised that can be used to match, call them targets of opportunity if you want to use a military term, to match requirements that the foundation identifies where they need to bring in outside specialized help to continue that renovation of the track down to Pogue. And that we're targeting at $75,000. Robertsdale has had a lot of work and a lot of good things happen this year, but we're having a bit of a challenge in Robertsdale. I would have liked to show you the new paved tour path and show you the new signs that have been mounted along the tour path, but we're actually in a spot where we really need some help from a volunteer standpoint to make that happen. So our fundraising goals are rather modest for Robertsdale. We haven't actually spent all the money that we raised last year in Robertsdale or for Robertsdale, because we need some help to manage those projects and to complete the historical work for the signage. So there's a small component of the campaign for Robertsdale, $10,000 this year, that's added to the money that's not spent from last year. That'll be used to come up with the paved tour path and the signage for visitors. The net result of Robertsdale, we hope, is a path that would be paved with an asphalt type material and that would have signage along the path that is coordinated in design with signage as planned here in Rock Hill by the foundation. And then the final category, those of you who've been following our work here in Rock Hill for some time know that we've attacked things like the foundry, the blacksmith shop, the machine shop, the car shop, the carpenter shop, the storehouse, the roof in the roundhouse, the windows in the roundhouse, and so on and so on. We're running out of big building lift projects. There are not too many more buildings threatening to tip over or sink into the ground. That's the good news. The bad news is that once the building has been lifted with the Woodford technology, there's still a lot of work needs to be done on it in terms of new doors and windows. In some cases, the siding no longer comes down to the ground, so it needs new siding, as you can see here in the example of the car shop. There's always roof maintenance required for those buildings. There's an interesting metric that Bill Adams called to my attention. There are 604 window sashes in the Rock Hill complex. And this year, they had a mini milestone celebration. They installed the 302nd rehabilitated window sash. So in 20 years of work, they've gotten halfway there. We'll be working in window sash for some time to come. And that costs money. It takes very clear lumber to mill the appropriate sash repairs, and it takes paint, and it takes glazing compound, and so on. So to continue to complete the various projects in Rock Hill, we're targeting to raise $25,000 to continue that work that's already underway on the various buildings on the complex here. Sum total, if you go to the last slide, that adds up to $180,000. That's less than we raised last year. It's a very substantial chunk of money. We need the help of everyone who's been so generous in the past to once again make that happen. As you can see, the money that was raised last year, and especially the extra money that was raised last year, was immediately plowed back into the railroad and projects at the railroad. So when you're contributing to the campaign, you can be confident that that's really helping to restore the East Broad Top. This is the cover of the special publication that Dan Kupper talked about, and you'll notice that it has a couple slogans on it. It describes us as the steam treasure of the East, and it says that what the story is about in the magazine is the rebirth of a legend. And that's really, I think, a very accurate description of what's going on here and what we've all been involved in for the last many years of the organization and the many years of work here in Rock Hill and in Robertsdale. If you hit one more click, that's the back of the magazine. It has a full-page ad by the Friends of the East Broad Top, urging people to join, because by doing so, they become part of the legend, part of the rebirth of the East Broad Top Railroad. And that's a very tangible way that you can contribute, either by financial contribution or by actually taking part in the volunteer sessions. In the last of Doug Davenport's newsletters, the one that came out at the beginning of October, there was a very good article by Gene Tucker in which he talked about the fact that what we need is a combination of money and sweat equity. You know, actually get out and paint buildings, lay ties, so on. That work continues in future years, and it allows us to become part of the legend. I've made my contribution already. I hope all of you will join me in contributing to the campaign, and if we are able to do so, we should meet here again a year from now with a lot more track, some buildings that have windows on them, and a lot more stuff in the archive. That's what that makes happen. So thank you very much. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the fundraising campaign. All fundraising, or I should say all contributions, received from October 1st of this year through October 1st of next year count in the campaign, and we'll be happy to acknowledge everyone as we did this year in the newsletter. So thank you very much.